Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Sanhedrin daf Yud Ches. We are going to begin on Yud Ches Amud Aleph by the new Mishnah, new Parak. Parak Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol done v'danin. So a Kohen Gadol, not only can he judge, but he can also be judged. Done isai. Not only that, made him eat an iso. He can testify, and someone can testify on him. Chaylitz v'chayltzin. So the din is that he can also have chalitza performed. He can do chalitza, or chalitza can be done on his behalf. Well, ishtai umiyamin ishtai. He can do yibum. Miyamin is ishtai. Someone do yibum for his wife. So when we know a kohen hedget, a regular kohen, can't marry a gerusha, can't marry a divorced woman, but a regular kohen can marry an almana. So if the kohen gadol dies childless, so his brother, who's a kohen hedget, could do yibum. However, if the kohen gadol's brother dies childless, so the kohen gadol cannot do yibum because she is an almana. And the kohen gadol is aser ba'almana, so he could have chalitza done out for himself. Knows if he died, but not if his brother died, then the kohen gadol cannot do chalitza. However, now when it comes to chalitza itself, of course, both can be done. Okay, and that is going to be more elaborated on tomorrow's daf. Mace loy mace and yaitza achar hamita. Let's say died, so you don't go after the casket. Elahei nichnasin, they enter v'hu nigla, and he is revealed. Okay, there's a Rashi over here. So kohen gadol eni yaitze achar hamita. So this is referring to, again, the kohen gadol doesn't go after a casket. Dilma asa leminga, maybe he'll end up touching the mace. V'hainu di azir kra min hamikdash lo yaitze mikudashos lo yaitze kalaymi yisrachek min akir shlo yavli de tuma. So the reason why we don't have to go after a casket, mace and a yaitze achar hamita, is because we're concerned that he may end up touching. However, hein nichnasin v'hu niglas, as Rashi, kishehin yoitzin mim mavoy zeh. Let's say they leave one mavoy, v'nichnasin mavi achar, and they go into another mavoy, v'nichnasin mim mavi harishain sheinu roin iso. So hu nigla v'nichnas mavi harishain. So basically, he can keep his distance. He can't be very close, but when they go out, he can basically go to the original mavoy. That's what it means. V'hu nigla, he can reveal himself. Hey niglin v'hu nichse. If they are revealed, he conceals himself. So again, the idea is that he has to distance himself from the mace so that he doesn't potentially become tameh. We're even more careful when it comes to the tumah of a kohen gadol. V'yotzim on Pesach Shar'ir, he can go out with them until the opening of the gate, Divrei Meir. So he could somewhat be part of the procession of escorting the mace, but he has to keep a far distance. No, he can't even leave from the mikdash. He learns the pasuk is pretty explicit that you can't leave the Mishkan. So therefore, that's it. Can't leave the base of mikdash. Yukashu menachem. And when they do Nicham Avelim, which Rashi says, Beshura, in the row, when they return from bearing the mace, in which basically you create two rows and the person in Avelis goes in between, Kashu Menachem, Acherim, Derech Kol Am, Arvim Bezeh Acher. So basically the way it is that they go one after the other, V'mamuna Mematzai Ben Levena Am. The Mamoitza, Rashi says that the Sagan Kohanim, the deputy Kohen, Mematzu Kohen Gadol, he puts him between the Kohen Gadol, between him and the nation. Shememenu biyaminai, Kol Am b'smayil v'hu be'emsa. So he ends up being in the middle. Ukashu misnachem macherim, when the Kohen Gadol wishes to that's a kashu menachem acherim. Ukashu misnachem mi'acherim, when the kohen gadol is being consoled by others, which sounds like one of his relatives died. Kol am oimrim lo anu kaparascha. We are your atonement. That's a nice statement. You should be blessed from the heavens. When there's the Sudas Havra, as it's brought down in Moed Katan, that an Avel needs to eat his first meal, it's usher to eat from his own. He's supposed to provide a special meal called the Sudas Havra. So, everyone is basically eating on the ground to show respect. Vumesav al safsel, but he, the Kohen Gadol, can eat on a bench. As Rashi says, Vumesav b'chavoid al safsel, to show kavod for the Kohen Gadol, even though he's in the veil, so he could sit there. Hamelech, so that's all about a Kohen Gadol. And again, we're going to talk about this Mishnah at greater length when we get to the Gemara. Hamelech lo dan v'lo dan anai. Unlike a Kohen Gadol, he cannot judge, and he can't be judged. Lo maid v'lo me'idin iso. He cannot testify, and people can't testify against him or on his behalf. Lo chaylitz v'lo chaylitzin lo ishtoi. When it comes to a king, there's no din chalitza even. If he dies or if his brother dies, he doesn't do chalitza, nothing. Lo miyavin v'lo miyavin lo ishto. There's no din yibum. Want to see why? Why is there no din chalitza or yibum? He's just a king. What does that mean? He could do it if he wants. We don't listen to him. The ain naisin almanasai. We're not going to allow him to marry a widow. Actually, a king can marry the widow of a king. That David actually married the widow of Shaul. Shenemar Beis Adonecha v'es Neshei Adonecha b'chikecha. So it says Neshei Adonecha, your master's wife. So it's possible that even though a king typically is not allowed to do so, however, a king may marry the widow of another king. Okay. Says the Gemara. So Kohen Gadol done. So we said that Kohen Gadol can judge. So Pshita, why not? So done nice with Srichle, that you can judge against him. So Hanami Pshita. How could he judge us if we can't judge him? It says his that you should adorn yourself and then adorn others. Adorn yourself and then adorn others. In other words, improve yourself and then you can improve others. So if we can't judge you, then how is it possible that you could judge us? So the truth is, if it's a davar pashut that you can judge, then it should also be a davar pashut that we can judge you. The truth is, there's no chiddush when it comes to a kohen gadol. The chiddush is by the melech. Now, because of a melech, there's no judgment. Kohen gadol shaharigas a nefesh. There is actually a chiddush. Now, when it comes to a kohen gadol who kills someone, b'meizid nerag, we don't care that he's a kohen gadol. He's not above the law, and therefore he's going to be sentenced to death if he was b'meizid. B'shoigeg, typically what happens? You go to Golus. Now the problem is that when you go to Golus, how long do you go to Golus for? You go to the city of refuge, or Miklat, until the kohen gadol dies. But this guy is the kohen gadol. So b'shoigeg goyla, b'oiver al aseh ve'al lo yisaseh. What does that mean? So of course, going to ask, what does that mean? That it's over an aseh and alois aseh. He's like a head in all matters, which the Gemara is going to explain what that means. Okay, so b'meiz and nereg pshita. Again, why would he not be killed? Why would a kohen gadol not be killed if he murdered someone b'meizid? So you're right. That's the whole chiddush. So hanami pshita. Why wouldn't he go to golus? That's the punishment for killing b'shaygeg. It says that the person who kills b'shegig stays in the Ari Miklat until the Kohen Gadol dies. Anytime that there's the potential of this happening, then you should go to Golus. However, this Kohen Gadol, maybe in this situation he should not go to Golus because there's never a possibility of him ever going free because he is the Kohen Gadol. Not as we learned on Daf Yud Chesamad Beis, it says a higher Kohen Gadol. If a Kohen Gadol kills b'shaygeg, he is goyla to Ori Miklat, a kohen gadol shaharigas a nefesh, or a kohen gadol who if you kill a kohen gadol, or a kohen gadol who kills harigas a nefesh, iniyas mishum oilam, he never leaves the city of refuge, which is in itself a big chiddush. So ema lo ligli kamash malon. Since he can never leave, maybe he should never have to go to Golos. So the chiddush is kamash malon that Hitaka still has to go. So v'machanami, he doesn't have to go. So Merkro, when those shama kol ratzeach, I feel kohen gadol mashma. It says kol ratzeach, any murder has to flee to the city of refuge, and then we do not make any exceptions, even when it comes to this guy. Okay, so that's possibly another answer to this question. What is the chiddush? Okay, so then whether or not there is a chiddush by judging. So it says that when it comes to a kohen gadol, he's over al aseh ve'al lo yisaseh. So what does that mean? Lo sagid lo yavar. So isn't it good enough that he shouldn't be over? What does that mean? What does it mean that he is over and aseh and lo yisaseh? Hachakamer. Im over al aseh ve'al lo yisaseh. If he violates either an aseh or lo yisaseh, harahu keched yilchol davarav. That he's like a hedjit. In other words, whatever the punishments are, in which maybe when it comes to certain punishments, dini mominus or chavolas, things of that nature, so you have to have a judgment of 3. So pshita sagadadamnino hoyel tanan ein done and loas hashev loasad navi sheker v'los kohen gadol LLP. Based in Shulshan V'echad, you have to have 71. V'yomer Rabba Barava Kol Davar Gadol Yivil Echad Davar Shel Gadol. So it's referring to the Kohen Gadol, as we saw already a couple of dafim ago, that the Kohen Gadol, who is a Davar Gadol, him also, we were on the second person, like the Nasi of the Shevet, is also considered Davar Shel Gadol. Then you need 71. So aim a Kol Davar Shel Gadol, even if it's something which is a small matter, like a davar shebamamoin, that also there'll be a chiyuv of having a judgment of 71 kamash malon. Then no, in that case it's not necessary. When it comes to an aser losa, in which there's different punishments, so we only need a basin of 3. Maybe you need 71. Miksiv divri gadol hadavar hagadol ksiv davar gadol mamish. A very big thing, says Rashi, im avar avera sheish bo misas basin. Who the boy Sanhedrin Gedola of a Malchus loy? It's only when it comes to Misa, but not when it comes to Malchus. Even though again sometimes we make a hekesh, which we compare Misa and Malchus together. Okay. When it comes to a Kohen Gadol, the Mishnah says he's allowed to be judged. He's allowed to be judged and be a judge. He's also allowed to testify, and he can act as a witness, and he can also have witnesses on him. Meid Bosanya. It says he can be a judge, he can be a witness. It seems to be a somewhat of a ziluta, a lowly thing. Bosanya, Salamta. It says an interesting language comes from Shavas Aveda, that you could actually cover your eyes up from doing the mitzvah of Shavas Aveda. When? There's sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Okay, it's a kohen b'hu b'beis hakvadis. Let's say you're a kohen, and you see that the Aveda, the lost object, is in a cemetery. So in that situation, you do not have to get it. Because if you would get it, you'll end up becoming Tameh. Because the Pasuk is telling you that even though there's a mitzvah to get it, but Vasalamta, it's telling you that there's an exception. There's no mitzvah of Shavas Aveda if you're a Kohen b'beis hakvaros. Or Zaken v'eno fi kvoida, which we're going to focus on. Someone who's a Zaken, which can mean someone who's older, or someone who is of a distinguished nature, and it's not honorable for them to pick up such an object, is not obligated to do the mitzvah of Hashem Sabeda. If let's say his malacha is more than that of his friend, which let's see what Rashi says. Let's say you have a very high-paying job, which means like you make jewelry, you put holes in jewels, because you have to get paid for your bittul malacha. So if you find this object, which is worth whatever it's worth, so it's worth a few bucks, but your time is worth thousands of dollars an hour, so it's not worth it for the person who had lost the object, because he has to reimburse you for your time, which is not even equivalent to the object itself. So therefore, you don't have to pick it up. So what does that have to do with our case of testifying? Says Rashi, it's an embarrassment for him to have to do so. There's a question is like, but what does that have to? The kasha really is that who cares when it comes to Edus, what does this have to do with V'salamta? They're two separate mitzvahs. Fraktaisus made v'hatani v'salamta dim timer l'ukma be'edus achaydish devadi kohen gadol made demida d'sura in chacham and t'minim l'neged Hashem. So v'yesh leimer the made mash b'chol davar bein be'isur bein b'mamayna duma the melech l'me'ed the mayr b'mayna. So the idea could be that maybe if it's something with something with lefi kvaydai, then l'chayr he shouldn't have to do anything. So we can learn out from Hashavas Aveda when it comes to a davar sheba mamoin that you shouldn't have to do it. So why would we say that he has to testify for a hedjit? So Rabbi Yosef made lamelech. Actually, he doesn't normally have to, but he has to when it comes to a king. Says Rashi, Haditani made lamelech kaimer shahay melech baldin. If the king is the baldin, the kohen gadol yoydel edus, and he knows testimony, so it's not a zilusa to be able to be in part of that very prominent, important case where the king is involved. But tanan, lo done in Isai, lo made, lo me'id in Isai. It can't be talking about a king because it says that when it comes to a king, there is no testimony for a king. El amram zer me'ed lo ben melech. So it's not the king himself, but the king's son. So it's not a zilusa. So where it says bar ben melech hedjitu, so what do you mean? He's not a hedjit. So you're talking about a hedjit. He's not a hedjit. El me'ed bifnei hamelech. It means you can testify in front of a king. Ein moishivan melech was Sanhedrin. What do you mean? You don't put a melech in front of Sanhedrin. Says Rashi, Shah melech yoshiv adan b'Sanhedrin. Mishum yikar de kohen gadol asa. Actually, now that the kohen gadol is coming, which is a great honor, so the king can come. The Yosef, and he'll sit there. Mikabli nihili la Sanhedrin. So the Sanhedrin will accept him. Koihu ba'azol, and then afterwards the king will leave. And then the Sanhedrin will engage in din. So really what happens, not that the king is really involved as a member of the Sanhedrin, but the idea is that he's present because of the honor of the Kohen Gadol being there. The Kohen Gadol is allowed to do it, and it's not considered to be an embarrassment because, again, it's a Ben Melech. Okay, fine. Let's look at question 11. Madua Kohen Gadol enu meyed. Why can the Kohen Gadol not be made? So typically he should the alfina mi aveda the zakin ve'en fi kavaydo pater shekavod abrius daicha lav the lo such lo salim. So because it's kavod abrius, so we don't have any kavod abrius issue. Hachanami Kohen Gadol be'edos ve'im ba hamelach. If the king comes, kadesh tiskabel edos mefanav. So if the king is present there, so then it's not a zilusa for the Kohen Gadol, and therefore that's a case where he's allowed to be made. Okay, so that's how that's how we answer that. Okay, let's see if there's there's a question here. Yeah, exactly the same question, which is TB28, which my suspicions were correct. TB28 is the same question as 11. I wrote v'salamta mehem Shavas Aveda b'shvil kavod im ze'enu b'chvaydai shel kohen gadol hu lo tzarech el im kein hamelech roitza shehu meyed v'hu sham bebeistin. Okay, not a little choppy Hebrew language there, but that's the idea. Okay, Gufa. Getting back to what we said before. Ein moishivan melech v'Sanhedrin. So the king cannot be part of the Sanhedrin. V'loi melech v'kohen gadol be'ibur hashana. We also don't want the king or the kohen gadol to be any part of ibur hashana, of deciding should we have a 13th month. That is not allowed. To melech v'Sanhedrin dechsev lo sana al riv, lo sana al rav. So a plain of words is lo sana al rav. The rav, who's the great leader, that's referring to the melech, it's referring to the king. Lo melech l'kohen gadol be'ibur hashana, melech mishom afsanya. When it comes to the king, he's going to want there to be a 13th month because of the troops. So what exactly is that? Because first, let's look at Rashi. You're not allowed to contradict the highest people of the judge of the court. The Omer Melech choiva. If the king says, kill him, sulamatzi enchel mixil zachusa. You can no longer find favor in therefore. And therefore, that's the reason why loisana rib. Rav is the leader. Mishum afsanya. So the king has to give monies per annum per year, a certain amount per year. But he would make every single year 13 months long, right? It's kind of like if you're a renter and you pay by the year, so you just make every year 13 months. So you always have like a free month of rent. So it's the same thing. He has a free month of having to pay his army. So every year he'll just make it a 13-month year. He'll stretch out the time. So we don't want him to do that because he's no Gabadavar. Kohen Gadol mishum tzina. Kohen Gadol, we don't want him involved because of cold. What does that mean? It says Rashi, Inu roitza shedis aber shana. So he's never going to make the year later. Minei tzina shesarach litbol v'kadosh b'yom kippurim chamish tevilos v'asar kiddushin. In order to be able to switch the garments, which he does multiple times, he goes into the mikvah 5 times, and he also is mekadosh his hands and feet 10 times. V'imtis aber shana, if there's a 13th month, hari tishrei b'mar cheshvan, then Tishrei ends up really being a month later, in what could potentially be like Mar Cheshvan, right? But it's the 10th of Tishrei, but it's going to be even colder. V'sinis Mar Cheshvan tieh b'Tishrei. So he doesn't ever want there to be a 13th month, because the 13th month will mean that I'm going to celebrate Yom Kippur later. I'd never want Yom Kippur to be later because it'll be too cold. So therefore, that's the reason why Kohen Gadol cannot serve and make a decision of Iber Shana. We can derive from here that Shaita, the year, Basar Yercha Azal, that it goes after the months. So, for example, September to October, right, it ends up getting cold. Says Rashi, Acher Yerechim Haroyim Liyois, after the months that are fit, Yim Lotis Nisabra, if you don't make a 13th month, Hoylech Kor V'cham Shoshana, the Sin Haroyim B'mar Cheshvan, Havi B'Tishrei. So basically, instead of it being cold in October, it'll be cold in September. Eini Hanach Gimel Roi Bakar. There's these 3 shepherds. The Havi Kaima they were standing. V'Shamin Hu Rabbanan the Kaimi. They heard the Rabbanan saying Chadoimer Im Bachir Ulakish Kachada. It's din. So they said that if the wheat and barley are at the same time that it sprouts, dinhu adar. Says Rashi, im yechaim hakarka b'karka, if it's hot in the ground, the yismach zer habacher b'afela, and it ends up growing the first and second grains yachad together, which is chitin shenizru b'rosh chodesh, the wheat in the beginning of the month, usayim shenizru achshav, and the barley now, din hu adar, then it's adar. V'im lav leis din adar el shvat. So he's saying based on the growth of certain wheats and barley, we can determine whether it should be Adar or Nisan, Adar or Shvat. Whether there should be like another month. Din hu Adar. V'im lav leis din Adar, then it's Shvat. V'chad oimer. The other one says im tor b'sfar b'teleg yomus v'tahira ketol teina yidmucha yishlach mashcha. Din hu Adar v'im lav leis din Adar. So second shepherd said, if the shore dies because it's cold in the morning, and then v'tahara, and then in the afternoon it rubs itself, then it's adar. If not, it's not adar, rather it's shvat. Says Rashi, im tor, but sipor betel yomos, if it dies from the snow, im b'barki he kor chazak, it's so cold, actually has short karb lomos, it's almost going to die because it's so cold. And then the afternoon, with Saraim Yigdal Kaya Chachayim, it gets a little bit stronger because of the heat. Actually, Hashor Mitzel B'Tseil Hateina Machmas Chachayim, that ends up going to the shade because of the heat. V'yishlach Mishche V'yavshit Oiray, and it like removes its skin. Kleimer Yischakech B'Teina Machmas Chachayim, it rubs itself because of the heat. So then it must be Adar, and if not, it must be Shvat. So based on the temperature, and we can see these different what's going on either with the crops or the animals, whether it's Adar or Shvat. The Chadam and the third shepherd said, Im kidum takiv l'chada yehe yivach b'lacha, napik lekibale din hu Adar v'imlav leis din Adar. Says Rashi, Im kvar tashish kayach hachayev kokach, if the coldness has kind of gone away so much, that when you have the eastern powerful winds, which brings cold, the ata now menashi baficha, the yaitza likrasa, and it comes to greet you, and you get cold because of the winds, umach maseha din hu adar. If it's really cold, leis din adar el shvat, then it's still the month of Shvat, which is colder. Okay, so basically, if your cheeks come out because of the fog, then it's Adar. If not, it's Adar. V'yibru Rabbanan lahu shaita, and the Rabbanan, based on hearing these different things, were able to determine whether or not it should be Adar or Shvat. Alma, says Rashi, shaita, the year basar ibura azul. It goes after the ibor. V'lo nahaga chayim denisan ba'adar el minag adar ba'adar sheni. Whereas v'tizba Rabbanan arvata samuch, do you think they're really relying on these shepherds? El Rabbanan achush b'naihu samuch. They have their own calculations. Roy Bakar estu Yehudi asayim milsayu. They're just supporting their words. But even though these shepherds had their own interpretations of whether it should be Adar or based on what's going on in the ground or the animals, or again how you're breathing in the cold, that is not enough of a determinant for the Chachamim. They had to make their own calculations and cheshbonos, and therefore that's how it was done. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Let's see, maybe another question. Okay, only one question with that. TA 27, Madua ein Moshivan Melch b'Sanhedrin v'Ibra Hashana. So that we did do, which is on Yud Chesed Beis. So we do not want him on the Sanhedrin because it's Usan al Riv or Usan al Rav. Ibra Hashana mishum afsanayu machalik mamon b'chal yosef v'Shana, and therefore it's not going to be accurate. So that's TA 27, because he's just going to obviously always say that there's a 13th month. So again, Melech v'Sanhedrin nechsev Losana al Riv, Losana al Rav, and Loy Melech l'Kohen Gadol b'Ibra Hashana. So at least this is at least asking the question because of the king, which is because of Spania. Kohen Gadol is because of Sinna. That was TA 27, TB 29. We didn't do Rabbi Geber. Okay, this test we already did. Let's see if there's a question up here. And this test wasn't graded. I guess I didn't do it on time. Okay, but this is what it looks like. Lama katani b'mishne kohen gadol dan v'dananoisai lo pashu. So my answer is, since the melech is no, we mentioned kohen gadol yes. Okay, fine. Or really the chiddush, if a kohen gadol kills b'shaygig, still he goes to galus. Very good. That's correct. Ha'hayri kohen gadol, you kill kohen gadol, v'loymina acher b'mkoymai ma dinai b'shaygig galus. Kohen gadol shaharig as a nefesh b'shaygig galus. I think that's just the answer. Hechi. See your, I can't read this. This test is over 30 years old, by the way. Keitzad yitzar hadin b'kohen gadol meid al chayrim v'ein lefira. Kvaydai. So how could he judge? So this is what I wrote. If the melech stays in the Sanhedrin while the kohen gadol gives eidos for his son, then the melech leaves, and the Sanhedrin investigated the case further. Beautiful. Lama in Moshivan melech b'Ibra Hashana. He'll want extra. Army gets yearly wages. Kohen Gadol, the cold to go in the mikvah on the festival of Yom Kippur. Festival, I wrote, okay. Lama ein Kohen Gadol yavim amanim in the suin. Adka.